The digital clock's red glow burned 3:17 a.m. when Celeste's trembling hand shook me awake. In 23 years of marriage, I'd never seen my wife's eyes that wide, that wild, like a cornered animal calculating its escape route. "Graham, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Just come with me. Don't ask questions." I sat up, running a hand through my graying hair. The bedroom felt cold, despite the October heat still clinging to Boston's suburbs. Celeste was already dressed. Black jeans, dark sweater, like she was planning a heist. Sure, nothing suspicious about a 3 a.m. drive with a hysterical wife, I muttered, swinging my legs out of bed. Maybe she finally killed that spider in the basement. But even as I cracked jokes to myself, something twisted in my gut. Celeste wasn't the midnight adventure type. She was the 8 hours of sleep, organic smoothie, yoga at dawn type. This was wrong. I pulled on yesterday's clothes while she paced by the window, checking her phone every 30 seconds. The blue light illuminated her face in harsh angles I didn't recognize. "Celeste, what's going on?" I said no questions. Her tone was sharp enough to cut glass. "Just trust me." Trust? Right. The woman who'd been working late every night for 3 months, who'd started password protecting her phone, who'd suddenly developed a taste for expensive lingerie I never saw her wear. My engineering brain cataloged these data points like circuit failures, waiting to cascade. We climbed into her BMW. She insisted on driving. Her hands shook as she started the engine, and I noticed she'd already programmed the GPS. The destination was in the warehouse district, a part of town where honest people didn't venture after dark. "You know," I said, watching the familiar streets blur past, "most husbands would demand answers right about now." "You're not most husbands." She didn't look at me. "You're patient. You wait. You figure things out." Her voice carried something I couldn't identify. Regret? Fear? Or was that admiration for the very qualities she was about to exploit? The city changed around us as we drove. Manicured lawns gave way to chain-link fences. Streetlights became sparse, creating pockets of darkness that seemed to swallow the BMW's headlights. I'd driven through this area during the day. Abandoned factories, storage units, the kind of places where drug deals happened and bodies got dumped. "Celeste, seriously, what are we doing here?" She pulled into a cracked parking lot beside a 3-story brick warehouse. The building squatted like a sleeping beast, most of its windows boarded up, but light leaked from a few on the second floor. "Inside," she said, cutting the engine. "Now." That's when I saw the other car. A silver Mercedes sedan parked in the shadows near the loading dock. I recognized it immediately. It belonged to Bianca Walsh, Celeste's best friend and coworker at Meridian PR. The same Bianca who'd been giving me strange looks at dinner parties, who'd stopped making eye contact when she visited our house. My stomach dropped. Whatever this was, it wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. "Celeste." I grabbed her wrist as she reached for the door handle. "What did you do?" For just a moment, her mask slipped. I saw the woman I'd married, the one who used to laugh at my terrible jokes and steal bites of my dessert. She looked terrified. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Graham." Then the mask was back, and she was out of the car, walking toward a rusty door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." I had no choice but to follow. The door opened before we reached it. The man filling the doorway was built like a linebacker gone soft around the edges. Expensive suit, silver hair slicked back, and the kind of confident smirk that came from never being told no. I'd seen him before, at Celeste's office Christmas party, schmoozing with the executives. Quentin Prentice, VP of Strategic Development at Meridian PR, and according to office gossip, the golden boy being groomed for the CEO position. "Graham," he said like we were old friends meeting for drinks. "Thanks for coming." Didn't realize I had a choice. I looked between him and Celeste. "What's this about, Q?" His smirk widened at the nickname. "Straight to business. I like that. Come on up." The warehouse interior was a maze of concrete and shadows. Our footsteps echoed as Quentin led us up a metal staircase to the second floor. The space had been converted into something resembling an office. Folding tables, portable lights, a couple of laptops humming in the corner. And sitting in metal chairs in the center of it all, bound and gagged, were my parents. Dad's eyes met mine over the duct tape covering his mouth. At 78, he still had the ramrod posture of his Air Force days. But I could see the fear. Mom, 75 and barely 5 feet tall, looked impossibly small in the harsh light. What the hell is this? I started toward them, but Quentin's hand landed on my chest. Easy there, Chief. They're fine, for now. He gestured to a folding chair. Sit. Bianca emerged from the shadows, wringing her hands like Lady Macbeth. She couldn't meet my eyes, which told me everything I needed to know about her role in this nightmare. Here's the situation, Quentin continued, settling into a chair across from me. Your wife and I have been collaborating on a lot of things. Business, personal matters, future planning. Celeste stood behind him, tears streaming down her face. I didn't want this, Graham. He said it was the only way. The only way to what? But even as I asked, pieces were clicking into place. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd been pushing me to update our life insurance policies. Quentin pulled out his phone, swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. Security footage from what looked like a hotel room. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, the night Celeste claimed she was working late on the Morrison account. I watched my wife of 23 years wrap her arms around another man's neck, watched her kiss him like she meant it, watched her do things she hadn't done with me in years. Turn it off! My voice sounded strange, distant. There's more, Quentin said, still smiling. Months of it. But that's not why we're here. See, Graham, you've got something we need. Money? I laughed, but it came out bitter. I'm an electronics engineer, not a lottery winner. Your company. Bianca finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Hartech Solutions. The patents you've been developing. My company. The business I'd built from scratch in our garage 15 years ago, designing security systems for small businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And lately, I'd been working on something special. A revolutionary home security system that could integrate with smart devices in ways no one had attempted before. The preliminary patents alone are worth $2 million, Quentin said. But that's just the beginning. With the right backing, the right marketing, he spread his hands. We're talking about a $50 million company in 5 years. So buy stock. We tried the polite approach. He nodded toward Celeste. Months of your loving wife trying to convince you to take on investors, to modernize, to think bigger. I remembered those conversations. Celeste pushing me to expand, to bring in partners, to maximize my potential. I thought she was being supportive. But you're stubborn, Quentin continued. Old-fashioned. You want to keep your little company small and manageable. Noble, but not profitable. So you kidnapped my parents. Borrowed them. They were very cooperative once we explained the situation. He leaned forward. Here's the deal, Graham. You sign over controlling interest in Hartech Solutions to a consortium we've established. 60%. You keep 40 and a nice salary. Your parents go home safe. Everybody wins. And if I refuse? Quentin's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Your dad's got a bad heart, doesn't he? Stress isn't good for a man his age. Rage flooded through me, hot and clean. But underneath it, my engineer's brain was working, cataloging details, filing away information for later use. You planned this whole thing, I said to Celeste. The marriage problems, the distance, making me think it was my fault. I tried to love you, she whispered. I did love you, but Quentin showed me what life could be like. Really like. Not just comfortable, but extraordinary. Extraordinary, I tasted the word. Is that what you call cheating on your husband and conspiring to rob him? It's not robbery, Quentin interjected. It's business. You'll still be a millionaire, Graham. Just not the only millionaire. Bianca stepped forward, holding a tablet. The contracts are already drawn up. All you have to do is sign. I looked at my parents again. Dad was trying to work his hands free, but the zip ties were too tight. Mom was crying silently, her shoulders shaking. What happens after I sign? We all go home, Quentin said. You and Celeste work out your marital issues, or don't. That's between you two. But the business relationship continues. I'm thinking we announce the partnership next month. Big press conference. Local entrepreneur teams up with major firm to revolutionize home security. And you get rich off my work. We all get rich off your work. That's the beauty of capitalism, Graham. Rising tides lift all boats. I stood up slowly, my mind racing. 23 years of marriage, 15 years of building a company from nothing, and it all came down to this moment in a warehouse with my parents tied to chairs and my wife crying crocodile tears. I need a minute to think. Of course. Quentin checked his Rolex. Take your time, but not too much time. It's almost 4 a.m., and I've got a breakfast meeting at 7. I walked to the window, looking out at the empty parking lot. My reflection stared back. 48 years old, graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the face of a man who'd spent his life being reasonable, being patient, being the kind of person others could count on, the kind of person others could exploit. But as I stood there, something else stared back from the glass. Something harder. Something that had been building for months as I watched my marriage crumble and pretended not to notice. Okay, I said, turning around. I'll sign. Smart man, Quentin said, but there was something in his tone that made my skin crawl. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction at a job well done. Bianca, bring the contracts. As she fumbled with the tablet, I caught my father's eye again. He'd stopped struggling with the zip ties and was watching me intently. In his gaze, I saw something that took me back 30 years. The look he'd given me when I was building my first radio kit, when I'd gotten frustrated and wanted to quit. Take your time, son, he'd said then. Think it through. Every problem has a solution if you're patient enough to find it. Just out of curiosity, I said, accepting the tablet from Bianca. How long has this been in the works? Celeste wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Graham, please don't make this harder than it has to be. Humor me. I'm signing away my life's work. I think I deserve some details. Quentin shrugged. 8 months, give or take. Celeste came to me with concerns about your company's growth potential. We started talking, one thing led to another. One thing led to another, I repeated. That's a poetic way to describe adultery and corporate espionage. Jesus, Graham, Bianca snapped. Can you not be sarcastic for 5 minutes? This is serious. Oh, I'm taking it very seriously. I scrolled through the contract on the tablet, noting the terms. 60% to something called Meridian Development Holdings. A salary for me that was generous enough to look legitimate, but would effectively make me an employee of my own company. This is very thorough work. Professional. We wanted to make sure everything was legal, Quentin said. Above board. Except for the kidnapping part. Your parents are guests. They'll be released as soon as you sign. I kept reading, my finger moving across the screen, but I wasn't really processing the legal language anymore. Instead, I was thinking about the basement workshop in my house, about the hidden camera system I'd installed 6 months ago when I first started suspecting Celeste was having an affair. The cameras I'd never told her about. The cameras that had recorded every conversation she'd had in our house, including the phone calls with Quentin and Bianca planning this whole operation. There's something I don't understand, I said, still staring at the tablet. Why not just divorce me? Take half in the settlement and start fresh? Celeste and Quentin exchanged a glance. Half of what? She said. The house has a mortgage. Your company is worth something, but not enough to set us up for life. This way, we get the real value. The potential. The potential, I nodded. Right, and what about my parents? What's to stop you from coming back for more, once you realize how much money we're really talking about? You have my word, Quentin said. I laughed, actually laughed. Your word. The word of a man who seduced another man's wife to steal his business. That's supposed to comfort me? Quentin's friendly mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something uglier underneath. Sign the contract, Graham. Or what? You'll hurt 2 senior citizens? That's your big play? I'll do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, I repeated. Then I looked directly at Celeste. Is this the extraordinary life you wanted? Watching your husband get threatened while your parents-in-law sit tied up in a warehouse? Stop it, she whispered. Stop what? Asking questions? You told me not to ask questions tonight, but I'm curious about the details. For instance, how did you get my parents here? Bianca shifted uncomfortably. Celeste called them. Said you'd been in an accident and were asking for them. Ah, I nodded. And they came running because they love their son. Because they're good people who trust their daughter-in-law. I looked at Celeste again. Do you remember our wedding day? When my mom gave you her grandmother's ring because she said you were the daughter she'd always wanted? Graham, please. She's wearing that ring right now, while she sits tied to a chair because of you. Celeste broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Quentin put a protective arm around her shoulders, and I felt a fresh wave of rage. Enough, he said. Sign the contract, or I start making phone calls to some very unpleasant people. What kind of phone calls? The kind that result in accidents, heart attacks, falls downstairs. His voice was perfectly calm, conversational. Your parents are old, Graham. Fragile. Things happen. That's when I knew he was serious. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about power, control, the thrill of taking something from someone who couldn't fight back. Okay, I said. You win. I raised the tablet, stylus poised over the signature line. But instead of signing, I suddenly hurled it across the room. It hit the concrete wall and shattered, pieces of glass and plastic scattering across the floor. Oops, I said. Quentin was on his feet instantly, his face red with fury. You son of a... Relax, I said. I'm sure you have backup copies. You seem like the thorough type. But the distraction had served its purpose. While Quentin was focused on me, he hadn't noticed my father working one hand free from the zip ties. Dad was old, but he'd been an aircraft mechanic for 30 years. He knew how to work with his hands. Bianca, Quentin barked, get the laptop. We'll print new contracts. As she hurried toward the computers, I kept talking. You know what I find interesting about all this? The timing. 8 months ago, Celeste started acting strange. 8 months ago, she started pushing me to expand the business. 8 months ago, I started suspecting something was wrong. So, Quentin was trying to regain his composure, straightening his tie. So 8 months ago, I installed a comprehensive security system in my house. Video, audio, the works. Every conversation Celeste had with you, every phone call with Bianca, every detail of your little conspiracy. I've got it all recorded. The room went dead silent. You're lying, Celeste said, but her voice was shaky. Am I? Remember last Tuesday night when you thought I was asleep? You were on the phone in the kitchen talking to Quentin about the timeline for tonight. You were worried about my parents, said maybe there was another way. He told you to stop being weak, that this was the only way to get what you deserved. Celeste's face went white. Graham. Or how about 3 weeks ago when Bianca came over for wine? You two were in the living room going over the financial projections, figuring out how much you could steal from me. Bianca said she felt bad about it, and you told her to think about the money. Bianca was backing toward the stairs. I need to go. Nobody's going anywhere, Quentin snarled, but his confidence was cracking. Even if you recorded us, so what? You can't prove we were serious. We could claim it was just fantasy, just talk. Maybe, I said. But I don't think your investors at Meridian would see it that way. Or your wife, for that matter. Does she know about Celeste? Quentin's face went from red to purple. You bastard. I'm the bastard? I'm not the one who kidnapped senior citizens. That's when my father made his move. With one hand free, he'd been working on the ties around his ankles. Now, he suddenly lunged forward, tackling Quentin around the legs. Both men went down hard, Quentin's head striking the concrete floor with a sickening thud. Dad! I rushed toward them, but Quentin was already rolling away, blood streaming from his scalp. You're all dead, he screamed, stumbling to his feet. All of you! But the balance had shifted. My mother had worked her gag loose and was shouting for help. Bianca was halfway down the stairs, fleeing. And Celeste was just standing there, staring at the chaos she'd helped create. It's over, I told Quentin. Walk away now, and maybe we can work something out. Work something out? He wiped blood from his forehead. You think this ends here? You think you can humiliate me and just walk away? I think you're outnumbered and outgunned, I said. And I think you're about to find out what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit speed dial. Mick, it's Graham. Yeah, I know it's late. Remember that favor you owed me? I'm ready to collect. Michael. Mick Torino had been my roommate at MIT 25 years ago. back when he was studying criminal justice, and I was buried in electrical engineering textbooks. After graduation, he'd spent 10 years as a Boston PD detective before going private. These days, he ran a small investigation firm specializing in corporate security and matrimonial cases. He also owed me big time for lending him the money to start his business when the banks wouldn't touch him. 5 minutes, I said into the phone, keeping my eyes on Quentin. Warehouse district off Industrial Boulevard. Bring backup. Quentin was pacing like a caged animal, blood still trickling from his head wound. You think your cop friend scares me? I've got connections too. I'm sure you do. But right now, you're the one standing in a warehouse with kidnapped senior citizens and a head injury that's going to be hard to explain. Celeste had finally found her voice. Graham, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago, taking control of the situation. I helped my parents to their feet, cutting the remaining zip ties with the utility knife I found on one of the tables. Mom was shaky but alert, and Dad seemed energized by the confrontation, like the old Air Force officer was still in there somewhere. Are you hurt? I asked them. We're fine, Dad said, rubbing his wrists. But you need to be careful, son. This man isn't stable. Quentin laughed harshly. Stable? You want to see unstable? He pulled out his phone and started dialing. Yeah, it's me. We've got a problem. The target's not cooperating. Yeah, I know what we discussed. Do it. My blood went cold. Do what? Insurance policy, Quentin said, ending the call. See, Graham, I've been planning this for a long time. Your house, your business, your life. I know everything about you, including where you keep your backup drives. What are you talking about? Right now, my associates are paying a visit to your home office. All those security recordings you're so proud of, they're about to disappear in a very unfortunate fire. I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. The recordings were my only leverage, my only proof of what they'd done. Without them, it would be my word against theirs. And who would believe the bitter husband over the successful executive and his tearful wife? You're bluffing. Am I? Check your home security app. With trembling fingers, I opened the app on my phone. The camera showed two men in dark clothing moving through my house, one carrying what looked like gasoline cans. Stop them, I said. Sign the contracts first. The tablet's broken. Bianca, Quentin shouted toward the stairs. Get back up here. But there was no answer. Bianca had fled, probably halfway home by now. Looks like your accomplice abandoned you, I said. Quentin's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. They're in your office. 30 seconds, and your evidence goes up in smoke. That's when I heard the sound of footsteps on the metal stairs. Heavy, purposeful, coming fast. Mick appeared in the doorway, followed by two men I didn't recognize, but who had the unmistakable bearing of ex-cops. Graham, Mick said, taking in the scene. You okay? My house, I said urgently. They've got people there. They're going to burn it down. Mick was already on his radio. Unit 7, we need fire and police at 47 Maple Street. Possible arson in progress. Quentin's confidence evaporated. Wait, that's not... We weren't going to burn the whole house down, just the office. Just the office, I repeated. Well, that makes it so much better. Mick's associates were already moving. One securing Quentin, while the other helped my parents toward the stairs. But Celeste remained frozen in place, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. This isn't how it was supposed to happen, she said. How was it supposed to happen? I sign away my company, pretend I don't know about your affair, and we all live happily ever after? I thought maybe you'd understand. Maybe you'd see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to be robbed by my own wife? An opportunity to be more than you are. The words exploded out of her. Do you know what it's like being married to someone with no ambition? Someone who's content to stay small and safe and ordinary? Ordinary, I said. Right. Well, here's something extraordinary for you. I pulled out my phone again and opened a different app. Not the home security system, but a cloud storage service. See, the thing about being an electronics engineer is that you learn not to keep all your eggs in one basket. Those recordings, they're not just on my home computer. They're backed up to 3 different servers, with automatic uploads every hour. Quentin's face went ashen. That's impossible. We monitored your internet traffic. You monitored the obvious stuff. But I've been suspicious for months, remember? I set up encrypted uploads through a VPN, routed through my business servers. Even if you burn down my house and my office, the recordings are safe. Mick was grinning now. Classic Graham. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. Not always, I said, looking at Celeste. Sometimes I'm too trusting for my own good. Quentin made a last, desperate play. You can't use those recordings. They were made without consent. Illegal surveillance. In my own house? Of my own wife? I don't think so. I turned to Mick. What's the legal situation here? Well, let's see. Kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy to commit arson, adultery. Mick counted on his fingers. Your boy here is looking at serious prison time. Wait, Quentin said, panic creeping into his voice. We can work this out. Nobody has to go to prison. Graham, you want your company back? It's yours. Celeste, tell him. Tell him we'll walk away. But Celeste wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at me with something that might have been respect, or maybe just surprise. You really did know, she said. All this time, you knew what I was doing. I suspected. I hoped I was wrong. But you prepared anyway. I prepared for the worst and hoped for the best. It's what engineers do. Mick's radio crackled. Unit 7 to base. We've got 2 suspects in custody at the Maple Street location. No fire damage, but we found evidence of attempted arson. Relief flooded through me. My house was safe, my evidence was secure, and the people who'd tried to destroy my life were in custody. But as I watched Celeste being led away in handcuffs, I felt something else. Not satisfaction exactly, not even justice. Just a profound sadness for the life we might have had if she'd chosen differently. Graham, she said as Mick's associate guided her toward the stairs. I'm sorry, I really am. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't fix anything. What happens now? I thought about that. What did happen now? My marriage was over. My trust was shattered. And my life as I'd known it was finished. But my company was still mine. My parents were safe. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Now, I said, I start over. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and watching the news. Channel 7 was running a story about the arrests. Local PR executive and businessman charged in kidnapping plot. They'd used Quentin's corporate headshot and a photo of Celeste from our last Christmas party, back when I still believed we had a future together. My phone had been ringing all morning. Reporters, neighbors, clients who'd seen the news and wanted to know if Hardtech Solutions was still operational. I'd let most of the calls go to voicemail, but there were a few I had to take. Graham, it was Janet Morrison, my biggest client. I just saw the news. Are you all right? I'm fine, Janet. The company's fine too. It's business as usual. But your wife and that man from Meridian are no longer my problem, I said. Your security system will be installed on schedule. I guarantee it. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and started going through the recordings I'd made over the past 8 months. Hours of conversations between Celeste and Quentin, planning my downfall with the casual efficiency of a corporate merger. It was fascinating in a sick way, like watching a nature documentary about predators. The doorbell rang around noon. I opened it to find Bianca Walsh standing on my porch, looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Graham, I need to talk to you. I'm not sure we have anything to discuss. Please, 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the edge of my couch, wringing her hands the same way she had in the warehouse. I want you to know I never wanted it to go that far, she said. The kidnapping, the threats, that was all Quentin's idea. But you went along with it. I was scared. He said if I didn't help, he'd make sure I lost my job, and with Tom's medical bills, she trailed off. That's not an excuse. I know it's not. I studied her face. Bianca had always been the weaker link in Celeste's circle, the follower rather than the leader. But that didn't make her innocent. What do you want from me? Mercy, I guess. I know you have recordings of me. I know I could go to prison. You could. But maybe we could work something out. I could testify against Quentin and Celeste. Tell the prosecutors everything I know about their plan. I leaned back in my chair. Everything. The offshore accounts Quentin set up. The other companies he's done this to. The bribes he paid to get inside information on your patents. She was talking faster now, desperate. I kept records, Graham. I was scared something like this would happen, so I documented everything. Now that was interesting. What kind of records? Emails, bank transfers, recorded phone calls. Enough to put Quentin away for 20 years. I poured myself another cup of coffee, taking my time. And what do you want in return? Immunity. A chance to start over somewhere else. You want me to forgive you for helping to destroy my marriage and steal my company. I want you to understand that I never wanted to hurt you. You were always kind to me, Graham. When Tom was in the hospital, you sent flowers. When I got that promotion, you congratulated me at the office party. You're a good man, and I helped bad people try to ruin you. She was crying now, real tears that seemed to come from somewhere genuine. But I'd learned not to trust tears. Celeste had cried plenty over the past 8 months, and every tear had been a lie. I'll think about it, I said finally. But I want those records first, all of them. I'll get them to you today. And Bianca, if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of setup, I'll make sure you get the maximum sentence for everything. Kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy, all of it. She nodded quickly. I understand. I just want to make this right. After she left, I called Mick. How's retirement treating you? He asked. Retirement? Come on, Graham. With what you've got on these people, you could sue for enough money to buy a small island. I don't want a small island. I want justice. Same thing sometimes. That afternoon, Bianca delivered a flash drive containing what looked like a comprehensive record of Quentin's criminal activities. Not just the plot against me, but similar schemes targeting other small business owners. Bribes paid to city officials, tax evasion, enough to keep federal prosecutors busy for years. I spent the evening going through it all, cross-referencing the documents with my own recordings. By midnight, I had a complete picture of the conspiracy that had nearly destroyed my life. But I also had something else. Power. The next morning, I called Meridian PR and asked to speak with the CEO, Richard Blackwood. Mr. Harlan, he said when he came on the line, I want you to know that Meridian in no way condones the actions of Mr. Prentice. We're conducting a full internal investigation. I'm sure you are. But I think you should know that Quentin's activities go far beyond what was reported in the news. I spent the next hour walking him through the evidence. By